You are greatly mistaken. Your words are untruthful. And they spat upon him, saying, Criminal, disappear. Immediately the hermit Vasu sank into the earth up to his ankles because he had been the first to open the door to great sins. The Pravrahatarsa said to him, You should speak the truth. If you persist in lying, your whole body will sink into the earth. The hermit Vasu answered, I know that it is not a sin to kill sheep and eat their meat when it is done for the gods. Immediately he sank into the earth as far as his knees. In this way, he disappeared gradually as far as his thighs, then up to his neck. The Pravrahatarsa said, Now your deceitful speech has received its punishment in this world. If, however, you decide to speak the truth, even though you are under the ground, we can pull you out and allow you to escape from punishment. Then Vasu thought thus. As a noble person, I should not say two different things. Besides, in the Vaityo, Veda of the Brahmans, the sacrifices to the gods are made in all kinds of different ways. If I myself die, would that be worthwhile? Then he said single-mindedly. In the sacrifices to the gods, it is not a sin to kill living beings and eat their flesh. The Pravrahatarsa shouted. You are a hardened sinner. Then disappear completely, we don't want to see any more of you. Then he was swallowed up completely by the earth. From that time until today, the rule given by the recluse Vasu has always been observed. When a sheep is killed in the sacrifices to the gods, at the moment when the knife descends on the animal, one says to it, Vasu is killing you. Vasu's son was called Kaungcha. He succeeded his father as king. In turn, he also renounced worldly things, but he did not become a monk. Then he thought, My father, the former king, was swallowed alive by the earth even though he had gone forth from home. If I continue to rule the world, I might render myself guilty of a great sin again. Where then should I go? At the moment he had this thought, he heard in the air a voice that said to him, If, as you travel, you see an extraordinary place that is hard to reach, you should establish your home there. When these words had been spoken, the voice was silent. A little later, having gone out into the country to hunt, the king saw a deer that fled as swift as the wind. He ran after it but was unable to reach it. As he pursued it without resting, the members of his sea retinue were able to stay with him. In front of him he saw a place where 5 mountains formed a steep and well-sheltered basin. The ground there was level and produced fine soft grass. Beautiful flowers covered the earth. There were forests of all kinds of perfumed trees which bore flowers and fruits in abundance. Hot springs and cold pools everywhere presented their purity. This was a marvelous place. On all sides there grew celestial flowers with heavenly perfumes, and celestial music was heard. When the Gandharva musicians saw the king, they all withdrew. The king thought, This place is extraordinary and nobody has ever seen its like. This is where I should establish my residence. When he had thought thus, all his ministers and his officials who had been following him arrived. The king declared, The voice that I heard in the air told me, If you see on your journey an extraordinary place that is difficult to find, that is where you must establish your residence. Now I have just discovered this extraordinary place, it is here that I must establish my residence. Then he abandoned the city where he had lived previously and settled in these mountains. This was the first king to become established there, and starting with him, his successors, one after the other, lived there. Since this king first had a palace built there, thence came the name city of the royal residence. The explanation of the origins of RAJAGRHA in summary is finished. Parvata Sutra. The Buddha was dwelling on the Kaichokayochan, the vulture peak mountain. Sastra. Gandharva means vulture and Kuta means peak. Question. Why is it called vulture peak mountain? Answer. 1. The summit of this mountain resembles a vulture, and the inhabitants of RAJAGRHA, because of this resemblance, agreed to call it Vulture Peak Mountain. This is why it is called Gridrakita Parvata. 2. Furthermore, south of RAJAGRHA, in the Chaityolan, there were many corpses. Vultures commonly came to devour them and then went to perch on the peak of the nearby mountain. The people then named it Vulture Peak Mountain. It is the highest of the 5 mountains of RAJAGRHA. It abounds in precious forests and waters. The Aryas live there. The Buddhas frequent sojourns in RAJAGRHA and Sravasti. Question. We have understood the meaning of Gridrakita Parvata. Why does the Buddha dwell at RAJAGRHA? The custom of the Buddhas is to show their loving kindness towards all. It is like the sun that illuminates everything, there is nothing that does not receive its light. But there are great cities like Njutcheni, Fulia na Potian, Pernavarthana, Ahitcho Tolo, Ahikatra, Fukia Lo Pio Yo. All these great cities are populous and wealthy, and nevertheless the Buddha did not reside there. Why did he stay so often in the cities of Wangzhou and Chopoti? Although he stayed sometimes at Polonai, at Kia Pi Lopo, at Jinpio, Kampa, at Sotche2, at Kinchanpai, at Kyolia, etc. Nevertheless he stayed most often at RAJAGRHA and Sravasti. How do we know that he stayed especially in these 2 places? We see that the Buddhist sutras are mostly located at these 2 cities and rarely in another. Answer. 1. Although the great loving kindness of the Buddha reaches all equally, the great cities like Ujjayini, etc. are frontier countries. That is why the Buddha does not reside there. 2. Moreover, criminals are numerous there, and, as their roots of good are not ripe, the Buddha does not reside amongst them. Thus some stanzas say, the sun's rays shine equally on all, the mature flowers bloom at once, but the flowers not yet in bloom do not necessarily open up. In the same way, when the Buddha preaches the Dharma to all with the same feelings to all, the roots of good that are already ripe blossom at once. Those that are not so do not open up. This is why the Bhagavad resides amongst those who show the 3 following qualities: keen knowledge, ripe roots of good, reduced fetters and reduced afflictions. 3. Furthermore, it is out of gratitude that the Buddha frequently resides at RAJAGRHA and Sravasti. Question. Why is it out of gratitude that he often stays in these 2 cities? Answer. The kingdom of Kyau-sa-lo, Kosala, is the native land of the Buddha. This is why the Buddha one day replied to King Pinpo Solo, Bimbasara, with these stanzas.